Hello and welcome to Yerushalmi Berachos. We are on Daf Samaches, and that was how to print. 3 ha'aras for today. One of them is going to be a global Yerushalmi thing as well. And again, these are just famous halachas that it's funny to see them where they are. So the Gemara is talking about whether you are part of a group and one person can make a bracha or for everybody, or if you have to make a bracha by yourself. The Gemara is talking about maybe you have to lean, etc., etc. So in one gears of the Gemara says that we're talking about a Shvuas Haben, and at this thing called a Shvuas Haben, which we'll talk about what that is in a minute. So the Balabayas actually is serving people, so he actually cannot make a bracha for everybody in that capacity because he's actually not part of the group to a certain degree, which is an interesting etiquette that we'll talk about in a moment. Back then, how that person would serve them. We find a Gemara Bavli also that talks about how Rekiva, I believe, made a wedding and he was pouring everybody. So again, there's this element of like when you have a guest to take care of them. Anyway, so it ends up, it's a huge machlokes we're showing about what the actual words of the Gemara are. If we look at the Pnei Moshe, he brings down that Shvuas Haben, he must see. So our Mishnah is talking about a Shvua Haben. He said Besudas Mila, Shnikar is Shvua Haben. So there's different customs in different cultures about what exactly this means. But if it means bris milah, it's a very interesting thing because why is it called Shavua? The child is actually, it's his 8th day, but the element of bris milah, which is on the 8th day, is that he's lived through a full 7 days. It's that he lived through an entire week. But it's interesting that this thing of 8 is actually called Shavua Haben. It sounds like it's some type of celebration the night before, which might be a remez to some of the Sephardi customs or even the Ashkenaz custom of the night before the bris of getting together with the child. Anyway, there's this element. But according to his reading, during the actual bris itself, the Balabayas, according to the Pnei Moshe, the Rebbe of the Gra, the Balabayas is actually serving everybody. Other girsos are Tosis and the Rosh, but they actually have a whole different girsa, Bishavua Kainhu. Totally different brisa. If you want an explanation, if you're learning the blot, look at the Charedim. He brings it down. Again, brilliant Bikias, the Shamish from Shvuas, who was a tremendously wonderful person. So take a look over there because he brings down all the Shitas. It's amazing. Rabbeinu Yonah, Tosis, totally different girsa, and it really, really changes everything. There's another element, again, of halacha that's very, very relevant, which is basically if a person wants to eat in his sukkah, on Amar Rabbi Abba Bar Kana, Rav Chia Bar Ashi, he says that Tzarech Adam lifsol sukaso and yom, that if a person is moving back into his home for Shemini Atzeres, but he wants to eat his meals in the sukkah, then he has to passel the sukkah. So again, there's a whole dispute here exactly what's going on. The Ramazim about whether a person is allowed to be in the sukkah at that time. Rishub ben Levi says, Tzarech lekadish v'tol beis, to make kiddush in his house. I'm not going into all the halachic aspects of what's being discussed here because it's way beyond the scope of what I want to present. But I just want to point out that there's fascinating concepts here. And then the last thing I wanted to share for today is a very interesting historical thing that very interesting how they used to eat back then. The refinement is just so fascinating, and this is the Yerushalmi is quoting it, but it's a Tosefta. So basically, it's a whole story actually of what it looked like when they would eat. Ayin Sham, I'm not going to go into it right now, but basically, a guest is actually not allowed to enter the house anymore once they've served 3 appetizers. So what does that mean? So again, the Tosefta, Perek Daled, Osches says that the custom of Yerushalayim was that they would spread a cloth over the doorway at mealtime. This is a sign to the guests that the 3rd appetizer was not yet to be served, therefore they could enter. Once the 3rd appetizer was served, the cloth was removed and the guests knew they could no longer enter. You missed the party. If you take a look in Bava Basra, Bavli, Daf Tzadi Gimel Amud Beis, and the Rashbam there, you'll see a different version of this, but that's what the Tosefta says. Very interesting if you want to Maramakom. But anyway, what's the pshat? The pshat is that there seem to have been these appetizers that people ate. Again, an appetizer actually gets a person hungry, because when you eat something, the reason it's called an appetizer is because it expands your stomach, and then you think you're hungry, which is very interesting to know. When you're eating, when you first eat the appetizers, it whets your appetite, but really you're really not even hungry. It's just because your stomach's expanded, you think you want more. But anyway, suffice it to say, it's not considered respectful to come into someone's house and the guest isn't, and the host is not able to give you at least one appetizer. So therefore, once they serve that 3rd one, he no longer has anything else to serve you. If you come for the first one, he would have, then he could serve you the 2nd and 3rd. You come after the 2nd one, he could serve you the 3rd one, but now he has nothing. So therefore, it's an imposition. And again, you just see the refinement of how people acted. There's a certain refinement I think is lost. Many, I grew up and I saw this refinement in many Gedolei Yisrael and Talmidei Chachamim, and it's just it's a different generation that we live in nowadays where there's no such thing as refinement, and it's just something that caught my attention. I wanted to share